Ever had a player say, "It's what my character would do"? Has this ever caused frustration or conflict within your group? Would you like some strategies for handling this situation? Then stay tuned for today's episode. Hello and welcome to RPG PhD. I'm Dr. Ben, and today we'll discuss the "it's what my character would do" situation that can sometimes arise at the game table. Sometimes this phrase is just a simple explanation about character motivation, but often it can be a source of conflict when that particular phrase causes the game to grind to a frustrating halt. We want players to feel invested in their characters and to roleplay them authentically, but on the other hand, we also want everyone to have a fun and enjoyable gaming experience, and sometimes a player's actions can disrupt that. So, how can we balance these competing priorities? As a theater professional, one must always stay faithful to their characters and must endeavor not to break character, something that I believe strongly. Actors always face a paradox, however, while on the stage. They both must live believably under imaginary circumstances as a character pretending that the audience does not exist, while simultaneously knowing that they are actually actors playing a character and performing for a live audience. But for role-playing games, there is a similar but distinctly different paradox I will call the paradox of the role player. In this paradox, it's not between playing a character and being aware of an audience, but between playing a character and knowing that you are part of a cooperative storytelling game with other players. So that means that just like an actor on the stage who must hold their lines for laughter and applause, you as a role player must also be similarly self-aware. This means that character alone cannot be the only and primary concern for the role player, and that this must be subordinate to the cooperative nature of the role-playing game as a medium for storytelling. To put another way, if your role-playing philosophy is one of cooperative storytelling fun, then "it's what my character would do" is only one part of the cooperative experience and not necessarily the most important part. The point of most role-playing game sessions is to have fun, and as I've stated numerous times in my other videos, I personally believe that everyone has a responsibility to make sure everyone is having fun, not just the game master or dungeon master. Am I saying there should never be inter-party conflict? Absolutely not, as conflict is the central element of all drama. Internal, external, and intra-party are all great opportunities to tell great stories, but these conflicts need to have a certain magnitude. Oversimplified, certain magnitude is an Aristotelian concept that means that story ideas need the right amount of length in order to be explored properly. If a conflict is resolved too quickly, it can feel pointless, but if it drags on, it can feel monotonous. What you want is the conflict length to feel just right. What does just right mean? Well, think about it like the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. In the story, one bowl of porridge was too hot, one was too cold, and one was just right. So if you have an inter-party conflict, you want its length and resolution to be just right, especially when inter-party conflict can infringe on the fun of other players. I'm also not saying don't be true to your character. I'm saying that is not the most important thing in a cooperative storytelling game. Fun is, the cooperation. If you watch my video on adding improvisational rules to your RPG, linked up here, you will also see ways to address that issue, and that is, instead of saying "it's what my character would do," instead say "yes and." In other words, you should be trying to find a reason to justify doing something if it moves the story forward, instead of making a choice that stops the story from progressing. This is the paradox of the role player in action. You can both play your character in a believable way and cooperate with your fellow players. So, for example, your character might never willingly be in a party with an orc, because orcs killed their parents because of their backstory. But instead of refusing to be in a party that includes an orc or someone with orc parentage because it's what my character would do, instead decide to join the party to keep an eye on them. And if they step out of line, then you will act. This way you're staying true to a character and cooperating with fellow gamers. This also gives the opportunity for character growth. This can be such a missed opportunity and allows for a real character arc. A character arc, by definition, means that a character ends up somewhere different than where they started. They have undergone some sort of change because of their experiences. I often see role players who miss the opportunity for their characters to have arcs and have growth over the course of a campaign. Maybe over a series of adventures, this orc party member slowly wins the character over and they become friends. This sort of story direction would not be possible if the player refuses to go along because it's what my character would do. Here are some other tips to consider when you encounter this at your table. Establish expectations. Before the game begins, it's a good idea to establish some expectations for how players should act in-game. This can include things like not causing harm to other players' characters, staying in character as much as possible, and not disrupting the flow of the game. When everyone is on the same page from the beginning, it can help prevent issues from arising later on. This includes discussing what is and isn't acceptable behavior for characters and what your philosophy of role-playing is. Encourage collaboration. Instead of seeing the situation as a conflict between the player and the rest of the group, try to frame it as an opportunity for collaboration. Ask the player how they think their character's actions could be adjusted to better fit the group's goals or the overall story. This can help them feel more invested in finding a solution that works for everyone. Remind players that the tabletop RPGs are a collaborative experience and that everyone's actions and decisions affect the group as a whole. Encourage players to work together to make decisions that benefit the whole group rather than solely focusing on their individual characters. Encourage discussion. If a player constantly uses the "it's what my character would do" defense, it's important to encourage a discussion. Ask them why they believe their character would act that way and if there's any room for compromise or adjustment. Sometimes players may not fully understand their character's motivations, and discussing it can help them better embody their role. Remind the player that they are in control. Sometimes players feel like their characters have taken on a life of their own and they're just along for the ride. But it's important to remember that the player is ultimately in control of their character's actions. Encourage the player to consider the impact their actions are having on the game and to make choices that will help move the story forward in a positive way. Use NPCs or even other PCs to provide guidance. If a player is struggling to make decisions for their character, consider using NPCs or other PCs to provide guidance or direction. This can be a good way to steer the player in a more positive direction without taking away their agency. Be open to compromise. In some cases, a compromise may be necessary in order to resolve the issue. Be open to brainstorming different solutions with the player and the rest of the group. This can help everyone feel invested in finding a solution that works for the group. Focus on character growth. While it's important for characters to stay true to their motivations and personalities, it's also important for them to grow and develop over time. Encourage players to explore different facets of their characters and consider how they may react to new situations. I hope you enjoyed this video. I am curious about your thoughts, so tell me how you handle these situations, or if you've ever had these situations arise at your table. We'd love to hear from you in the comments below. I do try my best to respond to every comment that's posted, so feel free to do so. If you enjoyed this video, or found it useful, or found its advice sound, please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Until next time.